Good evening, councillors and residents who have come to this council meeting, Tuesday the 25th of February 2025. I'll declare the meeting open at 5 p.m. and read the acknowledgement. The Shire of York acknowledges the Ballabong people of the Noongar Nation, who are traditional owners of the country upon which we're having this meeting, and we recognise their continuing connection to the land, water, sky and culture. We pay our respects to those people and their elders, past, present and emerging. And in accordance with Regulation 141 or 14I and 14J of the Local Government Administration Found Regulations 1996, notice is given that this meeting is being video and audio recorded to facilitate community participation and for the purpose of taking minutes. By being present at this meeting, members of the public consent to the possibility that their images and voices may be recorded. Audio recordings are published on the Shire's website following the meeting and may be released upon request to third parties. Members of the public are reminded that in accordance with section 6.16 of the Shire of York Local Government Council Meetings Local Law 2016, nobody shall use any visual or vocal recording device or instrument to record the proceedings of the meeting without the written permission of the presiding member. I wish to draw the attention to the disclaimer notice contained within the agenda document and advise members of the public that any decisions made at this meeting today can be revoked in accordance with Regulation 10 of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996. Therefore, members of the public should not rely on any decisions until formal notification in writing from the Shire has been received. Any plans or documents in agendas and minutes may be subject to copyright. The express permission of the copyright owners must be obtained before any copying of any copyright material. Standing orders. There's no change to standing orders. Do we have any visitors? Councillor Smythe.
I wish to note that door is shut and it's an open meeting, so the door needs to be open.
The problem is with the reverb going back and forth.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll do.
No, the door should be open.
Rebecca closed it.
This is to facilitate people coming and going, which you've got every right to do. No visitors present. Declarations of proximity interest. Anyone have any declarations of proximity interest? None. Declaration of financial interests. Pardon?
No, we can't understand what's going on out here because it's coming through the audio very below. Is there any way that can be corrected?
Mr. CEO can...
Through the chair, it just comes down to speaking through the microphones and having distance between the mouth, I suppose, and the pickup. So we just got to be careful about... I think I can hear myself sounding a bit clearer.
Trying to expand the visual out there.
Declarations of financial interest. Myself, SY 1010 of 225, multi-year funding agreement, acquittal of the York Society Incorporated, and Councillor Wright has a declaration of financial interest in SY 013 of 225, operational management of the York Recreation and Convention Centre. Disclosures of impartial interest. I have one. Councillor Smythe has one on SY 0110 of 0225, the multi-year funding agreement acquittals for the York Society, and mine is for the impartial interest declaration to be with regards to the selection for the new aquatic facility. The matter being SY. Okay, we'll declare it when that moment arises. So we have in attendance myself, Councillor Trent, Shire President, Councillor Dennis Warnick, our Deputy Shire President, Councillor Chris Gibbs, Councillor Kevin Pike, Councillor Denise Smythe and Councillor Peter Wright. Staff, Mr Clistonell, the CEO, Ms Alina Behan, our Executive Manager Corporate and Community Services, Mr Lyndon Mellor, the Executive Manager of Infrastructure and Development Services, Ms Rebecca Palumbo, Manager of Projects and Assets, and Ms Vanessa Green, Council and Executive Support Officer. There are no apologies. Nobody has applied for leave. And there are 34 members of in the gallery, residents in the gallery. Questions from previous meetings, there were nil. Response to unasked questions from the previous meeting, there's nil. And I'll now open public question time at 5:07 p.m. We'll take written questions. Do we have any written questions, Mr CEO? Nil.
No current written questions.
And we'll take public questions from members of the public. So whoever wishes to ask a question, would you move to the microphone, state your name and address, and then we will proceed.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Dennis Smith, 34 Georgiana Street. Bit of a Dorothy Dixer for you regarding our electors meeting last week. Just curious if it could be logged for the record. I believe we did hear the answer earlier, but it'd be good if it's logged. When will the minutes regarding that meeting be coming out and be available to everyone? Thank you.
Mr CEO, can you assist there?
Through the Chair, thank you for the question. We have 10 business days to get minutes uploaded for public viewing, unconfirmed minutes. They've been reviewed today and I suspect we'll be able to get them up by tomorrow. Obviously the minutes from the electors meter will then be presented at the next OCM.
Yeah. Thanks very much for that.
That's to confirm those minutes. Your name and address, please.
Karen Thomas, President of the York Business Association, Doncon Street, York. My question relates to the item on the agenda about the swimming pool. If the decision is made by Council that the new swimming pool is not to be built at the existing site, then in a few years' time, when the new facility is built and the current structures are removed, there will be a large vacant piece of land in a very prestigious and convenient place in town. I'm aware that this land is actually Crown land, but I'm just wondering whether there is any way that an approach can be made to the appropriate department to see, or the authority to see if there is any way, which will now be in a few years' time, that land could be reallocated as not Crown land, because it would be a really valuable asset for the town and could be used for something like aged care accommodation or something that would really benefit the whole town, and the services and everything are already there because of the current use. Yep. And if in fact that idea has any merit, whether in fact approaches could be made sooner rather than later.
Okay, that's the decision for the future, and obviously we've got processes to go through to have the zoning of the land, or rather the land vested in the council, because at the moment it's not available for anything other than the swimming pool. Next person, please.
Karen Mowat, 666 Buckingham Road, Cold Harbour, York. Am I allowed to ask 2 questions?
You can ask first question, and keeping it short as possible.
Yes.
And then if someone else wants to ask a question, they can do so, and we'll come back to you.
Okay. I would like to know, please indicate by raising your hands if you have watched the 9-part Australian Witness Statement documentary. Can you do that? Can you raise your hands? Okay. If you haven't made the time to watch the documentary as our electors' representative, I request that you do watch it as a matter of urgency. The film includes evidence and testimony from Australians and international medical scientific data and legal experts, as well as politicians.
Is there a question here?
Yeah. Have you watched the documentary, the Australian Witness documentary?
Well, the answer would appear to be no,
Thank you.
because nobody raised their hands.
Did anyone want to ask a question, or...? Okay, you ask yours.
Question.
Jane Farrell, 40 Hoops Road, Cold Harbour. My question is about item SY016. I was disappointed upon reading the agenda report for this item, consideration of recent communication.
A question, please.
We can't hear you out here.
Talk more directly. I wasn't sure if... More distance, okay. Is that better? Would that be better? Oh, good. Thank you. Okay. I was disappointed upon reading the agenda report for item SY016, consideration of recent communication from the town of Port Hedland, that the Shire would belittle the import of what we are asking because our numbers don't warrant taking action.
What is the question, please?
I just have another sentence, thank you. There are more who disagree with this narrative than you realize, but unfortunately, because of the fear created by governments, the so-called health system, the media, and more, few are prepared to be seen that they object because of coercion to do as they are told. Now, my question, do you realize we're not talking about issues like where the swimming pool will be located, rather about unspeakable injuries and excess deaths of millions of Australians and people around the world, including children, after receiving the gene therapy without legal informed consent that included the probable consequences because the pharmaceutical industry don't want you to know?
That's your question?
Yes.
CEO, can you answer that? Bearing in mind we have this to be debated later.
Leave it? Okay. I have a second question, but I'll let Karen ask her second
Well, if we
question.
can swap around.
My question, Karen Mowat, 666 Buckingham Road, Cold Harbour, York. In the agenda, on the Port Hedland agenda, on page 3, the last paragraph states, Port Hedland motion were not raised as a priority concern by the community at the Council Strategic Community Plan. My question is, how could the community say anything if the Shire had not informed the community of the Port Hedland motion? Thank you.
CEO?
So the Port Hedland motion was taken by Port Hedland, and they have provided, I suppose, a voice for local government across Australia by doing what they've done. Like I mentioned a while back, we are not at the directive of another council to determine what we do, but we do need to understand the position of our community. And what I would suggest, if there is a large position on this in the community, there is a process that we could go through, which is calling for an special electors meeting on the topic, which we did do back in COVID. So there is an option, if there is a groundswell in the community, that would support that. But as mentioned in the report, to date, and this is just the data, we've had 8 submissions on the Port Hedland motion. So that's probably not reflective of the community. So there needs to be a position where more people in the community are stating that.
Can I just say something?
You can only answer it,
No.
ask a question.
Catherine Davies, 55 McCartney Street, York. I don't know where to put this thing now. My question is regard to the swimming pool, and given the lack of decision and difference between councillors' opinions in the last meeting, I wonder whether the Shire would consider putting the 3 options back out to community feedback again, including that third option.
CEO, did you get the question?
I did. So the item is now in front of Council. Council will make a decision tonight. I don't know where the debate's going to go. So we just have to watch and see what the decision is. Maybe it might become that as an outcome, as a resolution for the administration to follow. But we will see at item 1.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Julianne Elkins, 23 Langford Road, York. My question is also regarding the pool site selection, and that is, will the Shire work with the Early Years Hub and the York Family Play Group to find equivalent and suitable premises and help them to be relocated if Site B is chosen, even if that is just a temporary while a new facility is being built within the new complex?
So you want to know, yep, okay. Well, obviously it's going to be one of the things that will have to be looked at should Site B be chosen. We won't be knocking over anything for a couple of more years because we've got to raise the funds, get all our plans organised and so forth. So you're probably going to be able to stay there for a little while.
Just through the chair, absolutely. One of the things I think we've tried to be clear on, maybe not clear enough, is that the services that you provide are essential to the community. So it's about finding a place that would be temporary if there was going to be a transition where potentially you could be integrated into a new site, or whether it's something else that you would like to see more permanently at a location that we can work through with you. That would be maybe an even better outcome. So the response to that is, no matter, I suppose, the outcome for tonight, if there is a site, A or B or Z, that we will be working with you to find appropriate location and facilities for your service.
Thank you.
Someone else wish to ask a question?
Didn't know somebody else was coming up first.
Yes,
Okay.
Jane. Thank you.
Is that in the right place? Okay. In the report, I'm referring to the same item on the agenda. You mentioned that enough councils had brought to the attention of the state and federal government officials the concern about the motions, basically, that through the motions that basically Port Hedland Council brought forward. What do you believe, this is my question, what do you believe would happen to the ridicule and censorship leveled on local governments by the state and federal officials if not just a few, but a huge number from many local governments decided to take action and stop the Pfizer and Moderna gene therapy inoculations until they were properly investigated for safety and effectiveness?
Well, I could respond to that first public meeting that was held. when none of the ministers paid any attention to our letters to them. And where we go from here is going to be part of the debate this evening.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes? Okay. Would someone move we extend public question time?
Councillor Wright moves the motion.
Councillor Wright's moved. Seconded Councillor
Gibbs seconds the motion.
Are we all in favour then of extending it? How long? 5 more minutes? 5 more minutes will extend public question time. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Now you may continue.
Okay, Diane Buckley, Cardwell Road, York. Regarding the swimming pool, I would like the council to consider doing a full cost analysis on the existing site, because I'm aware of quite a number of people who want that pool to stay where it is. So I don't believe we should be making a final decision until...
Are you asking a question?
Yes. Would the council consider doing a full cost analysis on the existing site? Okay.
Thank you. Mr CEO, I believe we haven't got to that point yet in cost analysis.
So with the needs and feasibility study, that a concept and cost estimate was provided. So that has been done. It's not detailed, but that has been done. So if you compared to the one concept they provided for the rec precinct for a 50-metre 8-lane pool versus the current site, I think the difference from memory was only about $400,000. What has been identified through the geotechnical work is that current site doesn't have there are better soils in the precinct, so there would be extra earthworks to be undertaken to excavate the pool up to bring in fill so you can actually undertake a build at that site. So, but as the Shire President has pointed out, the decision now sits in front of Council, so we need to wait for that to happen.
Just a quick further question. The information about the swimming pool has been over so many years and through so many minutes and reports that it's very hard to keep track of what's happened and the costing. So there's talk of 10 million, 15 million. There's all sorts of figures quoted all over the place. So it's quite disconcerting to think, what is going to happen. So, yeah, can you consider doing that cost analysis or providing a proper breakdown of the costs for the existing pool?
Well, there wasn't a question there, so we don't...
Well, can you consider putting a proper costing together for the existing pool?
We will consider it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, that's just to add to that. In front of Council now is a decision on the location. It does not include going back to the current site. So until that decision is made, there is no giving assurances about going and doing costing in detail on the current site, unless that is an outcome from tonight's meeting. So we just need to be really clear on that. And the second point I want to be really clear on, if you go on the website, under major projects, swimming pool, is all the documents and reports. The needs analysis feasibility study is only 18 months old, and you do not dive into detailed costings without knowing what you're building, where it's setting up. So until we know where we're going, we cannot do detailed designs unless we're going to duplicate it across 3 sites at tripling the cost of doing detailed designs, QS, and all the other things that are involved, and we still don't have a site. So there is information there if people want to access it. And I think probably one of the big things that is causing angst is people aren't being directed and bothering to read the information that's there. And that's just disappointing. And maybe I have to own some of that. But the information is there, and there's been plenty of work. And this project has been over a decade since it was needed. So we do need to make a decision. I'm not fussed what the decision is, as long as we've got something to do, rather than sort of sticking around trying to just make a decision on a location, because it's been 12 months almost since the decision was deferred.
Can I ask a question? It's only 2 lines. Please, Mr. President.
Well, we're almost at the end of that 5 minutes.
This won't take long. Am I allowed to ask?
Yes, go on.
Thank you, Mr. President. Karen Marwick, 666 Buckingham Road, York, Cold Harbour. Now, I'm going to rephrase my first question. Did you receive the video of the Australian Witness Statement documentary that was sent to all shires?
Did we receive it, Mr. CEO?
All the information provided by the town of Port Hedland was provided. And the information that you recently sent was also provided.
That wasn't sent by Port Hedland, was it?
So just for clarification, we've received quite a number of videos, so you just need to be specific to which one, because we have passed nearly everything on to the councillors for their...
Yeah, I've got the Global Truth Network video.
Sorry, through the chair, you sent that through to us?
No. This is the Globe... Who sent it, Don?
So if it hasn't been sent through, it's up to councillors to follow their own research if they wish.
It was sent to individual council.
Was it? Sent to individual council. Thank you.
Okay, well, the 5 minutes is over, so we'll carry on with the meeting. And I'll close public question time at 5:26 p.m. Applications for leave of absence, nil. Any presentations? Petitions, nil. Presentations. We have several. Deputations. Mr. Joe Dwyer. Now, I believe you've already presented us with a copy of your deputation.
I sent it earlier for councillors if they wanted to peruse beforehand.
Councillors will have that to read.
Sure.
So if you could keep your deputation to 10 minutes, please.
I sure will.
Very well.
Joe Dwyer, I'm for 431 Talbot Hall Road, Talbot. Good evening, Shire President, councillors, executive staff, fellow York residents and visitors. Thank you for this opportunity to provide this deputation. My name is Joe Dwyer, and I stand before you not just as a passionate advocate for York, but as someone who believes in this town's extraordinary potential. York is not just another town in the wheat belt. It is the first inland town of Western Australia, a place of pioneering spirit and bold ambition. Our forebears built the first inland pub in WA, the first provincial racecourse in Australia, along with many more firsts. They were visionary, first then, first now, first always. But somewhere along the way we've lost this moniker. We've lost ambition to remain first. We've become complacent. I'm a strong advocate for a new pool. However, tonight I urge the council to be bolder, to think bigger and plan for a future that extends far beyond just a swimming pool, that caters for York's current 3,500 residents. I'm imploring that the next phase in this project think bigger and consider master planning a world-class precinct, targeting the nearly 5 million visitors annually to the destination Perth region, which includes the Avon Valley, the 1.1 million visitors to the Wheatbelt every year, and the 100,000 residents currently in the Wheatbelt. Consideration of a new swimming pool has provided York, I believe, the opportunity to position itself as the premier regional sport and recreation destination in the Wheatbelt. Currently, the majority of people, I believe, acknowledge that the existing pool, which is over 60 years old now, has served the community well, but it's past its design life, is non-compliant in many areas, and refurbishing it is not a feasible option. Furthermore, we understand that at least 2 years disruption caused by constructing a new facility on the current site would be disastrous for all users. I'm an engineer, and as a junior engineer in the 90s, I audited many of these Wheatbelt pools built under I think it was the Belt of Blue, something program in the 60s, and I can tell you now in the 90s, I never did York Pool, but in the 90s they were all aging at that point and leaking. So it's not surprising, it's done well. So this really only leaves one valid site location option, and that is relocating the swimming pool to the Sport and Recreation Precinct. So only two sites within the precinct were flagged in the needs assessment and feasibility study, and these had subsequent preliminary geotechnical site investigation completed on them. As a geotechnical engineer myself and former manager of engineering at BHP, I've reviewed the geotechnical site investigation report and I see no overriding benefits of one of these proposed sites over the other. Both have advantages and constraints. Furthermore, neither site has been assessed appropriately for parking, access, co-location with other facilities, not just the existing. So based on the reports presented, I do not believe that either of these sites can be labelled preferred. It is just too early in the planning phase to make this statement. So what is missing is an overarching master plan for the precinct, I believe, one that incorporates all sport and recreation user groups. It includes an aquatic centre, not just a swimming pool, that caters to all aquatic user markets. It targets the millions of visitors that are on York's doorstep. It optimises the existing land package owned by the Shire in a prime location, and it promotes York as a unique recreation and leisure hub. The business case for a new swimming pool as it stands does not stack up. A $10 to $12 million capital cost, combined with ongoing operating expenses and a projected $1 million in annual maintenance after 20 years operations, cannot be sustained by historical visitations of only $18,000 per year. The facility is forecast to run at a loss from day one. In the real world, that's unacceptable. Yet I strongly believe an aquatic centre is critical for York. We must reject the status quo and pursue a visionary plan. We have the land, the need, and the opportunity, but do we have the courage? So a comprehensive master plan for the Sport and Recreation Precinct is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Without it, we risk making short-term piecemeal decisions that cost more in the long term and fail to unlock York's potential. If we have no plan, we will have no future. So a master plan will provide a strategic vision, optimised investment, attraction of external funding, operational efficiencies, and it goes on. So I believe York must lead, not follow. We've always been a leader. However, we've lost our edge. We've become comfortable, average. That can all change now with this major project. With a bold master plan, we can establish York as the Wheatbelt's premier sport and recreation hub. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to develop a world-class precinct that includes not only aquatic, but a myriad of recreation and adventure facilities. We shouldn't build just another pool. We should build a destination that attracts visitors from the Wheatbelt, intrastate, interstate and internationally. Think big. Wheatbelt, wet and wild. The business case must not be based solely on York's population. Instead, we must be visionary in the plan targeting a current market of 100,000 Wheatbelt residents, 1.1 million visitors to the Wheatbelt, nearly 5 million visitors to the region, families looking for an exciting adventure-driven aquatics facility. We don't need another Northam or a Kellerberrin swimming pool. We need to lead, not copy. I've labelled this project Wheatbelt Wet and Wild because that conjures images of water, play, fun, adventure, excitement, lots of visitors, lots of revenue and lots of money injected into York. Wheatbelt Wet and Wild can be whatever we dream it to be, but we have to put the dream on paper first. So the main thing is not just a swimming pool, it's an experience. So where do I see the Shire's role? I see the Shire's visionary leadership, it's not management. The Shire is not structured to operate a commercial recreation hub. It's not its core business. Instead, the Shire should stay in its lane and stick to its core business, which I believe is they're the landlord of that precinct and they own the land. They provide and promote the vision. They partner with experts and they can generate long-term revenue through leasing agreements. So York owns the canvas, so now I want it to paint the masterpiece. So my recommendation for councillors respectfully to consider is I do not intend to be obstructionist by presenting to council today. Rather, with York sitting on the edge of what I believe to be a once-in-a-generation opportunity, I'm insisting that the next step in the project development prudently consider the whole precinct rather than just move towards design and construction or just a new pool on one site. As an engineer and former manager in engineering at BHP, I'm extremely familiar with strategic planning and master planning. From my perspective, the next stage of the pool conceptual design must consider multiple locations on the one precinct. It must consider a variety of options and incorporate all other possible or targeted facilities. considered for co-location. Detailed design of one element, i.e. the pool, is too late to be exploring the best possible concept: people movement, infrastructure development, parking, services, extensions, etc. So for clarity, today I'm recommending that councillors commission a comprehensive master plan for the precinct that includes work to date on a new swimming pool, but considers the whole precinct and a wide range of sport and recreation activities. The conceptual design of the swimming pool and larger aquatic centre can occur simultaneously. The master plan developed should be advertised widely. Why not run an international competition to encourage architects globally to pitch design for the premier precinct in WA's first inland town? Well, I'm recommending that the new aquatic centre be located within the precinct area. I would recommend the new aquatic centre includes at least 50-metre pool, that we're targeting regional, state championships and bigger. I reckon all 4 aquatic user markets must be accommodated, not just the swimming and recreation as presented in the Concept 9. So that's fitness, training and sport, recreation, leisure, adventure, education, therapy and wellness, which we all know is a growing market. So in conclusion, first then, we will first then our forebears. Let's be first now and let's be first always. We have a choice. We can continue playing small or reclaim our status as pioneers. A piecemeal approach is a guaranteed failure. A bold master plan will elevate York to be a leader in sport, recreation and tourism, not just in the Wheatbelt, but WA. Let's stop thinking like a small town and start acting like the first inland capital of the Wheatbelt. First then, first now, first always. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. At the stage, as you're aware, we have an item on the agenda, and obviously your suggestion will probably be considered during that.
Yes.
Thank you for your questions. Anyone, any questions? Councillors?
I have a question, sorry.
No, it's elected members to ask questions.
You've got respected members of your community out here. You've had an excellent deputation, and nobody has been able to hear what that man said. All you need to do is open the door.
Is anyone any questions of Mr. Dwyer? Yes, Councillor Gibbs.
Councillor Gibbs. Thanks, Mr. Dwyer. I just wanted to get, and I know that this is theoretical, but given that what you're suggesting here is considerably larger than what might currently be on the table, what are your thoughts on the delay time when the current pool fails? We are racing a little bit against the clock here. What are your thoughts on how we get a bigger project up and running compared to something that's a little bit more straightforward? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Based on my experience, I suppose, and it is different, I'm in private enterprise, let's call it, with master planning. I do acknowledge that this is extra work, but I would not think it would extend any timelines. We would, in my experience, when we do master planning, it need not be to significant detail. It is really looking at the whole area.
Excuse me, this is piss poor. We've got 20 people sitting out here, none of us can hear what's going on.
Now,
how about sorting it out?
Now, hang on.
Did you understand that?
I understood it, but there's nothing else that we can do about it.
Well, it's about time you did. It's a town that wants to know what's going on, and we're not hearing about it.
I think if you were to be quiet out there, you may be able to hear.
Sorry.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yeah, continue. The master planning, it's preconceptual, I'd almost call it. It is at least looking at the whole precinct and considering not only existing facilities and users there and whether there could be improvements to that in the long term. Then it would consider other, and I suppose I'm pitching world class. I'm pitching, what if we attracted here, we would be best located there. And really, it would be how long a time frame do you put on your master plan? It could be anywhere from 20 to 50 years if you wanted to. So I wouldn't see a commitment to build. It's more a consideration for that precinct. It's an amazing piece of land, and I think sometimes moving early on a major project, a $10 million project, may stymie further optimisation of that whole precinct. But to specifically answer your question, I don't think you would need to extend much time. I think you could proceed with a decision around committing to a pool in the precinct and at least moving towards a bit further conceptual design, considering other user groups. Where it is positioned starts to get a little bit more detail maybe down the line. Hope that answers your question.
Thanks very much, Mr.
Any
Dwyer.
further questions, councillors? Thank you very much, Mr. Dwyer.
Thank you.
And we have your paper here to read if we wish to follow up.
Okay.
I understand Miss Diane Buckley has a deputation.
So, not the York, okay.
The York Swimming Club.
Thanks, councillors, for the opportunity to talk today and provide a deputation to this meeting. My name's Andrew Werrett, President of the York Swimming Club. The York Swimming Club has a long and proud history of being one of the oldest swimming clubs in WA, dating back nearly 100 years, where the first competitive swims were held in the river. Currently we have over 70 members, of which 44 kids are part of the competitive swimming or simple participation swimming programs. To give an idea of the swimming club's usage during summer, we estimate the club contributes to approximately 1/10 of the 18,000 plus entries to the pool, and this is part of training twice a week on Mondays and Wednesdays, with club nights, competitive club nights on Friday evenings. In addition, we annually hold, and it was just this last weekend, the York Open, where we brought over 400 people through the gate with 145 competitive swimmers as part of that. This annual event has been running for nearly 30 years and brings not just pool entries but also patrons of our hotels, pubs, cafes and the like in York. In addition to competitive swimmers, we run a Junior Dolphins program where approximately 15 early childhood kids begin their competitive swimming journey. The club wishes to advocate for a new pool solution where the club can continue to give these services to kids, but also remain a key target meet for the Swimming WA calendar. The York Open continues to be an opportunity for high-level swimmers to achieve entry times for state and national level meets. Strangely enough, the swimming club also seems to be the only source of competitive social sport that is in York for teenage kids during summer. During January, there were 50 people at the pool every afternoon. The concept of 2 to 3 years without some respite seems unacceptable. We know this is a massive decision for the councillors and it just needs to be made. We're hopeful that it is a new location and the swimming club is looking forward to working with the Shire once that location is decided. The swimming club knows that shared resources are the future and we stand to lose our single-use shed that we have at the current pool. But a new location has the potential to be a win-win for the community where we embrace a shared space with other community groups. Thank you. And I can provide a copy of that.
Very well. Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Werrett? Councillor Warnick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Werrett, does the swimming club have a preferred location of the three or not?
Certainly not the current location. No, not a preferred location. My personal is opposite the school, but that's up to the swimming club members to make their own decision on that. It's more that we prefer not to be in the current location.
Thank you.
Any further questions from a councillor? Thank you very much, Mr. Werrett, and for keeping it below 10 minutes. Now, Miss Diane Buckley, deputation regarding SY 016 of 0225.
Okay. My deputation relates to the Port Hedland motion. I will be starting my deputation by sharing what happened to Wayne Grimshaw following his COVID-19 injection. He was almost a died suddenly statistic. In the back streets of York, in his panel beating shop, Wayne Grimshaw woke up after being unconscious for approximately 4.5 hours. The temperature was in the 40s and he had a problem. Even though his phone was right next to him, he couldn't reach it because he was paralysed. When Wayne woke up, he couldn't move his arms or legs, nothing. He was fully conscious. After 3/4 of an hour, he could move. It was 46 degrees that day. Normally he would get regular visitors, but no one during that 4.5 period, which was unusual. He got himself to the hospital, but they couldn't find anything wrong. He was kept in overnight, then sent home. He came back and started working again. Wayne used to be a Golden Gloves boxer, so he was a tough bugger in the past. Moved to Australia from the UK when he was 8 years old. His first jab was on the 23rd of December and felt crap after he got it. He felt worse the next day. Christmas Day was really bad. On Boxing Day, the 26th of December, he was put in an ambulance to Northern Hospital with severe chest pains. He thought he was going to die. It takes a lot to get him in the back of an ambulance. Wayne has no doubt it was the jab, as he had been fine up until then. Mark McGowan, the dictator, was not his favourite person. The hospital were okay on the first visit, but weren't as welcoming the second time. Third time was, now what? Wayne has been into hospital 12 times. Actually, the 12th time they gave him antivirals. When in hospital, he was isolated and locked in a room by himself. The nurse told him she would put his food on a tray on the floor in the next room, and once she'd gone, he could come and get it. He told her that was very unhygienic. The hospital blamed it on COVID, nothing to do with the jab. So the COVID jab sent him back to the hospital 12 times. He can work with a sprained ankle, but what they did to him with this jab was terrible. He only got it because one of his customers, who is in her 80s, used to make him cottage pies, etc. She came in one day and she said, "Have you got all of your jabs?" He said he only had got one, and wow, what a change. She said, "You're not doing your bit for Australia, are you?" He said, "Yes, I am. I'm saving my own life." He has never seen her since. Wayne's landlord also pressured him into taking the jab, so he went and got it. In recent times, Wayne had a heart attack from Novocaine, getting a tooth out, spent all night in hospital. Day surgery for skin cancer in Midland caused a heart attack. Wayne's heart stopped 4 times that day and he had to be revived. He has only had one jab and can't have any more. It's on his doctor's records. He has lots of stomach problems since having the antiviral drugs. That's ongoing. The majority of pain medication is off limits to him as it triggers his heart, which makes it very difficult for hospitals to treat him. What would they give him if he was involved in a serious accident? He has tried all sorts of stuff and is following natural medication now and not taking any more drugs. We don't know what they're putting in these drugs. He's now suffering because of one jab. Today, Wayne has a very low heart rate and has to manage his workday as he tires easily. Now, the following is a video from Dr. Sally Price, who resides in Perth. She is speaking out to highlight the responsibilities of our authorities and health professionals to protect the ordinary people, those who were elected to represent us. So, if you can please start the video, that would be great.
It is my ethical duty to act when public health is at risk. I previously gave the example of a food poisoning outbreak being appropriately handled in a local council level. Imagine this. A local restaurant causes a food poisoning outbreak. People are hospitalised, lives are lost. Or a bar serves adulterated drinks, killing its customers, like the recent tragedy in Laos. The reaction? Outrage, investigations, headlines, immediate action. You'd avoid those places, warn your loved ones, demand accountability. This is what happens when lives are at stake. Now imagine this. People are walking unwittingly into medical facilities, rolling up their sleeves and unknowingly taking shots that, due to the internationally researched DNA contaminations, for some are a death sentence. A game of Russian roulette with outcomes ranging from sudden death to cancer, strokes, infertility or lifelong disability. The response here? Silence. Not from you or me, but from those we trust to protect us. Why? Because facing this truth isn't safe or popular. But leadership isn't about comfort. It's about responsibility. If it is my responsibility as a medical doctor to act when public health is at risk, what I would expect to happen next is my medical concern is escalated and something is done about it. And that is what's not happening. Instead, there's primary school behaviour, name-calling, well known to be the last refuge of those who've lost the argument and can't admit it. People of low emotional intelligence, insecurities, displaced aggression, or the need to dominate and control someone. The local paper in WA has detailed in the last few days a 13.5% decrease in birth rates, a 17-year low, and is passing this off as cost of living and FIFO issues. This is not scientifically possible. Due to the upcoming election in WA, suddenly there's renewed interest from the Uni Party in the overloaded hospitals. But who's looking at the cause? It started with the rollout. We're expecting Russell Broadbent's letters on the DNA contamination to the Prime Minister Albanese to be acted on. There's a whole funded office of the Gene Technology Regulator that seems to have been left out of the loop with the jabs. The TGA, over 95% funded by pharma, Pfizer, Moderna, already attempted to dismiss concerns from Port Hedland as mis- and disinformation. Maybe the 495 million had something to do with it. Local councils do have a legal duty of care to act to protect the health and safety of its residents and to mitigate further foreseeable harm. We need a proper facility for treatment of the jab injured like Riley. We used to have an emergency department in Fremantle that was taken away. Perhaps it can be repurposed for treating the complexity of jab injured with cutting-edge protocols by all the ousted, highly skilled health professionals who still have the compassion to heal others. We're not expecting the unqualified councils to make decisions, but to represent the community and pass on our concerns. Otherwise, democracy is dead in this country.
You have 2 minutes to go.
Okay, we ask you to accept this motion and follow the recommendation to carry out proper testing of the COVID-19 injections. Please don't take the easy path. Take the right action for our community and, most importantly, your families. Thank you.
Thank you. Any councillors have any questions? No questions, councillors? Then we'll move on to our next speaker. I believe that's Jane Fero. Your turn.
Vanessa, thank you.
It's all video.
There are well-informed doctors who can help the vaccine injured, but many are being slandered and silenced, which is preventing the medical community from learning how to identify and treat COVID-19 vaccine injuries. To assist your investigations, we provide in this witness statement details of the victims, the alleged crimes, the offenders, possible motives, the weapons, the evidence, and the intent and means in respect of lethal offences which we believe have been committed against the people of Australia. We believe the information and evidence presented clearly shows there was no pandemic of death in Australia, safe, effective COVID-19 treatments were available from 2019, so there was never a need for new experimental vaccines. Experimental products were injected without fully informed and legally valid consent. These injections have caused significant harm and death, and our government leaders and regulators failed to protect the people by ignoring calls from independent experts to stop the shots, investigate the reported COVID-19 vaccine deaths and injuries, and conduct critical safety testing that has not yet been done on the experimental COVID-19 vaccines. We can also provide an evidence dossier upon request containing further scientific evidence of the harms of the COVID-19 injections. Many independent experts, both in Australia and internationally, are also available to provide evidence and testimony to assist your investigations. Please listen to the vaccine injured and grieving families when they report alleged offences that have been committed against them. Their injuries and suffering are real, and they need your help. Please do not refuse, prevent, or restrict investigation of the alleged crimes. Don't risk being charged as an accessory when justice is eventually served in the courts. You may recall that "we were just following orders" was not an acceptable defence at the Nuremberg trials. Concerned men and women across Australia wish to restore public trust in our police officers, both state and federal, which has been greatly damaged in recent years, by working with you to provide information and evidence to support you in the investigation of these alleged crimes. We wish to give you the opportunity to show the people of Australia that we can rely on you to protect our rights and freedoms and to uphold the laws of our nation. No one is above the criminal code of law, so the perpetrators of these alleged crimes must be held to account to restore trust in the institutions of our great nation upon which we all rely for safe, healthy and prosperous lives. We present evidence in this witness statement indicating that tens of thousands of Australians have died and potentially millions more have been severely injured from being injected with experimental medical products, including gene therapy bioweapons, that were mislabelled as vaccines. Do not dismiss these allegations as conspiracy theories. It certainly appears that there has been a conspiracy, but these allegations are not theories. They are provable facts supported by overwhelming, indisputable data and scientific evidence. You may recall many other COVID-19 related facts that were initially labelled by the media as conspiracy theories. Reports of COVID-19 vaccine deaths and injuries can be found in the Australian Government's database for adverse events notifications, DAEN. Furthermore, the Australian Bureau of Statistics reports on deaths from all causes show an increase in excess deaths each year since the rollout in 2021 of the experimental inadequately tested products labelled as COVID-19 vaccines. Data from the Australian Government's own vaccine injury reporting system shows that up until December 5th, 2024, there have been over 141,000 adverse events reported following COVID-19 vaccination, including almost 23,000 cases with serious adverse events and 1,041 deaths. Independent researcher Sharon Cousins analysed data from the TGA on the time difference in days from COVID-19 vaccination to reported death cases for 1,037 deaths. This analysis shows that 35 or 3% of reported deaths occurred on the day of COVID-19 vaccination. 304 deaths, or 29%, occurred within a week of vaccination, and 543 deaths, or 52%, occurred within 20 days of vaccination. Why isn't the TGA investigating these reported deaths and calling for autopsies to be conducted?
I have in my hands here today a smoking gun that demonstrates that the TGA has not been honest about the safety of the vaccine. And they knew about the risks of the vaccine back in July 2021 when a 52-year-old man passed away 7 days after receiving that Pfizer vaccine. He passed away in his own home in front of his wife and his 16-year-old son. Now, an autopsy was performed on this man, and the pathologist determined that the direct cause of death was rapidly progressing myocarditis following Pfizer COVID-19 vaccination.
Now, despite that, this autopsy was eventually given to the TGA, and I'll note that the TGA said in the previous set of estimates that they don't solicit autopsy reports, that they have ignored and failed to report this side effect and this death from the vaccine. And this matters because we know that tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Australians got myocarditis and other severe vaccine injuries from the vaccine. Now, if we can't trust the TGA to be honest about this, if we can't trust the TGA to follow due process, then we have got serious issues. We have thousands of Australians out there today who cannot access compensation for the vaccine injury scheme because the TGA refuses to acknowledge the side effects from this vaccine. And yet again, I'll say it again, that the cause of this death was myocarditis. The TGA knows that myocarditis was a side effect from this vaccine, and yet they didn't tell the Australian public. Now, this is urgent because today we are still rolling out the mRNA vaccine. We are still claiming it is safe and effective. So the Minister needs to explain why the Health Minister isn't on the phone to the TGA and the Health Department, requiring them to explain, not just to the Minister, but to the Australian people, why they failed to inform the Australian people of the risks of that vaccine. Because this matters. Because thousands of people have been injured by the vaccine. They need to be compensated. And it also raises the other issue of how many other autopsies were sent to the TGA that they didn't bother disclosing to the Australian public. Because this is about due process. We cannot have the body, the bureaucrats who approved this vaccine, then being the same people to administer the injuries from this vaccine. Because there is an inherent conflict of interest to say, to cover up these injuries, because it will show that they didn't do proper testing on this vaccine. Not that we need the evidence of that. That was in the product assessment report, page 30. But the point of it is this, is that we want to know from the TGA and the Health Minister how many other autopsy reports were actually performed or sent to the TGA, why the TGA doesn't feel the need to solicit autopsy reports when a reported death is sent to them. How on earth can you continuously monitor the safety of the vaccine if you're not following up on reported deaths? Now, we know that the TGA never rang the family. We know that the family has never even been compensated by the Australian government. What sort of government do we have when we mandate the rollout of a vaccine, we don't warn people about all the risks of the vaccine, and then when they get injured, we leave them without any government support whatsoever? This, I say to my fellow colleagues, is the smoking gun that demonstrates that the Australian people and even you people in this chamber were misled. I am asking you today to support my motion to ask the Minister to explain why the TGA isn't held to account for the damage they have caused.
Thank you, Jane. That's 10 minutes. So if we could turn that off and move on. Not quite. Okay, we've got a couple more seconds then.
True injuries and deaths. Most people and most doctors simply don't report vaccine injuries. The famous American Harvard Pilgrim healthcare study of the USA's vaccine.
That's 10 minutes. 10 minutes is up. Anyone have any questions of Jane Farrow? No questions? Bearing in mind this will be debated this evening. Move on. Karen Marwick will have a presentation.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Karen Marwick, Buckingham Road, York, Cold Harbour. I have a short 4-minute video of Kelly Newton Wordsworth bringing to light the people injured and died suddenly from the COVID injections that was mandated by our leaders in government and health in Australia. The Forest of the Fallen is all over Australia. These brave, caring people are bringing the tragedy out into the open as the mainstream media and government and health ministers have not. Thank you, Vanessa.
I've travelled across the nation to sing for our freedom. I arrived in Coffs Harbour. No time for vacation. When I walked into the festival, I saw a sight I'd never seen before. A sea of signs waving in the breeze. What was written there I had to see. This was the forest of the fallen. Do you know what this means? In the forest of the fallen, you will see and you will grieve. Every picture told a story of death and injury. From our so-called vaccinations, mandated throughout our nation, there were people moving slowly in the forest of the fallen. I was singing right beside it, could not stop my tears from rolling. This was the forest of the fallen. Do you know what this means? In the forest of the fallen, you will see and you will grieve. The silence, it was deafening. The signs were so shocking. Do you know how many neighbors will never work again, never live again? This was the forest of the fallen. Do you know what this means? In the forest of the fallen, you will see and you will grieve, lest we forget, 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 lest we forget the fallen.
Do you have anything else to add, Mrs. Marwick?
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
We're gaining some time. Any questions, councillors? No questions? Then we'll move on to Julianne Elkins. There was a deputation regarding SY 0702 025, site selection for new aquatic facility. Thank you, Julie.
Hello, Chair, Council members. My name is Julianne Elkins. I'm the President of the York Family Playgroup. And I'm here to talk to you about the decision regarding the site selection of the New York swimming pool. While we are parents of young children and we value the new swimming pool, our primary concern is ensuring that the York Family Playgroup continues to have a suitable location to operate from in the future. The York Family Playgroup members are not just the children, but also the parents, the caregivers who rely on the service for emotional support and community connection. So, if Site B was chosen, 2 years without a proper home for the playgroup is a huge time in a young child's life, and many will have moved on to school by this time. And it's imperative that our children of 0 to 5-year-olds and their parents have a proper facility to learn, play and socialise. The York Early Years Hub serves as an essential community resource, and we acknowledge that the Early Years Hub building is an old and not a Shire priority. However, we have had to prioritise keeping this building as we are not been presented with any alternatives. Before any decisions are made regarding site selection, York Family Playgroup is requesting clarity on what alternative arrangements are possible for our organisation to aid in our future planning. I ask the councillors to consider adding motions presented today to include an early years facility if Site B was to be chosen. And I please urge you to use your vote to represent the ratepayers who elected you to make these votes for this location. Thank you. Nice and sweet today.
Any questions of Julianne? Councillor Wright.
And Councillor Wright, Julie, how many people, individual people, are in your organisation?
Well, we enrol our members by families. So we have 32 families within our membership. Each of those families, on average, have 3 people attending our playgroup, so roughly 90 members.
Any further questions? No further questions. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to item 6.41. Councillor Smythe has been active in the community. Item 7, confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 17th of December and the special council meeting held on the 28th of January 2005. Councillor Wright moves.
Councillor Wright moves the motion.
Councillor Gibbs seconds.
Anyone have any doubts, queries? No? Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried. 6-0. Move on to announcements by myself. The officer's report, SY 007 of 025, site selection of a new aquatic facility. Councillor Smythe, do you wish to move? Councillor Wright.
Well, I would like to move an alternative motion to this motion.
Move your motion.
This is Councillor Wright. I'd like to move an alternative motion. It concerns item number 1, and this which reads: the resolution to select Site A, the recreation precinct in the southwest corner, Site 44, lot number 100, Henrietta Street, York, for the proposed new aquatic centre.
So that has been moved. Do we have a seconder? I'll second the proposal. Councillor Wright, you may speak to your motion.
This is Councillor Wright here. When Joe spoke earlier about finding the site that is going to be beneficial for the next 50 odd years, and I was sitting in Henrietta Street on the corner of Forest in my truck yesterday, and I was looking across that bare vacant land that Site A is proposed on, and I look and I say, wow, it's going to be a really nice thing coming into town, not seeing a vacant block of land which has been there for many, many years. And I think building it on that site, there's a lot of things. We're giving time for those ones that are on Site B to develop their plans and their ideas about how we go forward, and hoping that they will be included in Site A at some point. And so that's where I'm coming from, and so that's what I need to look at, and I'll sum up later on.
And
Councillor Trent, can I just interject? You haven't asked if anyone is against that.
Is anyone, or is, I have someone to second it myself. So, councillors, we're looking at spending $13 million without Mr Dwyer's contributions.
Point of order, we haven't asked if anyone is against that motion.
I haven't asked if...
Anyone's against the motion, you don't debate it. This is
someone
against.
Does anyone speak against the motion? My apologies.
Councillor Gibbs is against.
Right, and Councillor Smythe and Councillor Gibbs. Councillor Smythe? Okay. As I said, we're going to be expending a vast amount of money on this aquatic facility. At the moment, the recommendation is for Site B. This is going to impact on quite a few members of the community through their various groups. And I believe that the Site A, there's more than sufficient area for the pool to be developed. The current proposed site, there is asbestos being identified in the soil. To develop that site, that soil is going to have to be removed. People are going to have to... it's going to be very expensive to remove it, because to do that you've then got to go and find somewhere to dispose of that soil. So, very well, you'll dig a hole to put a pool in there, but it'll be the expense of disposing of the soil. Councillors, this will be the only, if you put it in Site B, this will be the only site that the bowling club have to attend to play bowls across the region. Northam, their bowling club is up near the hospital. Beverley, it's down and away from any swimming pool. Bowling clubs that I'm aware of do not have swimming pools near them. Bowlers require a quiet environment to get on with their game. We've already discovered that the childcare centre will probably be there for several more years, because obviously we'll have to go and raise the funds to build the new facility. So I believe that the recommendation, as per Councillor Wright, that we put it on Site A, which originally, apparently, many years ago, when the council were looking at developing the recreation centre, they did have an idea of putting a pool in that corner of the reserve. So I will now ask Councillor Smythe to speak against the proposal.
President Trent, I believe I was first. Sorry.
Oh, well, if you want... Okay, you're first.
Councillor Gibbs speaking. Thank you, Councillor Wright and President Trent, for your comments. I believe that it's time for us to move forward on this project as a community. The only way to move forward on this project as a community is to make sure that the affected parties are taken care of moving forward. Site A does not build into it a solution for the users of the Old York Bowling Club who are here tonight. It does not build in a solution for the outdoor courts, which we already know have major issues. Site A avoids some short-term issues that we will need to address in the medium to long term anyway. If we're going to move forward with a site, we need to move forward and be community-minded. We need to make sure that the early years hub are taken care of. We need to make sure that we end up with outdoor courts for our community. If we go to Site A, there is not one thing written into the alternative motion that addresses any of that. What we need to do is to make sure that the people who are affected are actually taken along on this journey and not ignored on this journey. And that's effectively what choosing Site A, I believe, does. Okay, we have all been over this numerous times, and we understand the value of the users at Site B and the value of the facilities at Site B. I believe that the officer's recommendation tonight clearly shows the care that we're willing to take moving forward on Site B. And I believe that choosing Site A, while it might look like a victory for people who are worried about the future, it's nothing more than a reprieve for the users of the Old York Bowling Club. And I point to President Trent's point about the asbestos, which is surely a reason to do something about it rather than to leave them where they are. And as far as the courts go, I don't know if we have representatives here that have been passionate about the courts, but we've already established that we need to do something about that. A decision for Site A does not build in a decision on any of those things. So what happens to those things? What happens to the courts that we still need? What happens to the fact that the early years hub will eventually need something that is purpose-built and something that we can all be proud of? I don't think that Site A solves a problem for anyone. It's a reprieve at best, and we need to be community-minded about this, and we need to bring people with us. We need to get rid of the fear and have some faith. Thank you.
Councillor Smythe, you wish to speak? Someone to speak in favour of the proposition? No one speaking for it? Then pardon? Anyone want to speak for the motion? No one? Does anyone speak against the motion? Councillor Smythe.
I actually recognise the value of the early childhood group and what they bring to our community, and I understand their concerns about the potentially losing their current space. But as was just pointed out, asbestos in that grounds they shouldn't be there right now, as far as I'm concerned, because it's dangerous. If it's dangerous to be digging it to put in a swimming pool, it's dangerous to the young people that are there at the moment. I did actually like the idea that Mr. Dwyer put ahead, but that's a long-term thing. I think at the moment we need to make a decision so that the officers can move forward and do the cost analysis and do the requirements for what is required.
Anyone want to speak? There's no one else wanting to speak for the motion or against it? Not if you like. Then I'll put the motion. Oh, Councillor Wright, sorry, you want to speak? Sorry, didn't see you in the hand. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. This will indeed be a big project. It will be the biggest project that I have been a part of the decision-making process for in my 7 years in council, and it will come close to rivalling the construction of the recreation centre itself. So it's really important that we do pick the right spot for this pool, or the right spot to progress the plans. There will always be argument within the community, and you're never going to get 100% agreement, but it's on us as a council to pick the location that we think keeps the balance, and we seek to make recompense for those that feel that they've been left worse off. The other councillors have made a good point that if there is indeed asbestos at Site B, this is a prime opportunity to remove that asbestos and make better on that location. That is indeed our duty of care. As for the bowlers and their concern around noise, it is a recreation centre, and noise is made at recreation centres. I'm sure we can place it in a location where that is minimised, and it will be a fact of life that the bowlers may have to come to terms with. So that is why I believe that B has the most opportunity to tick the most boxes and create the most cohesion in that precinct. As I said 2 months ago, I see it as the final piece in the puzzle to make the recreation centre work and deliver the best outcome for the people of York. And I prefer Site B, or as recommended in the original officer's recommendation.
Very well. No one else wishes to speak? Councillor Wright, you have a right of reply.
This is Councillor Wright here. We around the table are ones that set legacies for our future. And our future looks a little different when we don't come across the right solution to the problem that we have in front of us. I do believe that a clean slate like Site A, and with adding to that the master plan around that site, that we can come up with a great solution which is world class, as been said earlier. That means that we may have to make some sacrifices about these things, but indeed I know the bowling club doesn't really like the idea of Site B, and as a bowler I like the idea around Site A because it's a clean slate and that we can start from scratch and we can do the right thing for our community. Thank you.
Very well. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 4. It's lost 4-2. So we'll now go back to the original recommendation. Someone prepared to move?
Councillor Gibbs would like to move with an amendment, please. Okay, Councillor Gibbs moves.
Okay. Councillor Smythe seconds.
Councillor Smythe seconds.
Councillor Gibbs, you want to move with an amendment?
Correct, thank you. Not yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, an amendment to it. Yeah. Yeah. So if you could move your amendment now.
Sorry, Vanessa, is it on the screen somewhere? Thank you. My amendment is in regards to point 3, that we change the reading to read, resolves to consult with impacted community groups included in the dot points under the heading Impact on User Groups on pages 17 to 19 of the officer's report to plan for relocation of current uses. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for the proposal? Or
I'm
the
happy
amendment?
to second that amendment.
So I'll now see if anyone wants to speak against the amendment.
Can I just ask that the box be moved such that I can read what... I'll read it on my iPad. I just wanted to read what 3 was previously. Thanks.
Does anyone want to speak for the amendment? No one speak for it? No one speaking against it? Therefore, I will put the amendment. All those in favour? That's carried. 5-1. You're against, Councillor Wright? You're against? Therefore, it's carried 5-1. Now, the motion will become part of the resolution. So, if you wish to move the whole... Yeah, that's... Yeah.
Sorry. That amendment now becomes a substantive motion. So that has already been moved and seconded. So now you can go into debate. So you want to ask if anyone is against.
Yeah. Is anyone against the proposal with the amendment?
Can I move another amendment?
No, we have another amendment. Yes, you may.
This is Councillor Warnick, just wishing to add a further point. Council notes that the business case will include plans and costings for rehabilitation of the existing pool site.
Do we have a seconder for that proposal?
Council notes that the business case will include plans and costings for rehabilitation of the existing pool site.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Wright has seconded the amendment. Do we want to speak against the amendment? No. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour then? That's carried. That's now become a 6-0. That's become an additional point in the substantive motion. And anyone want to speak against the substantive motion?
Can I move this a further amendment?
You have a further amendment.
This is Councillor Warnick. To point 1, to add at the end of the sentence within 12 months. To point 1.
So you're wanting to set a time frame. Very well. Do we?
Councillor Wright seconds the motion.
It's been seconded. Could we have that read out again so that we can get it down? It's in addition to point 1. There's a time frame of 12 months. Yeah.
Councillor Gibbs speaking.
Can we just get to wait until we get it down?
It could be point 2. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Point 2.
It's part of point 2.
This is Councillor Warnick. Just to clarify, that should indeed be at the end of point 2.
Now, Councillor Wright seconded it. Anyone want to speak against it?
So just for clarity for us, do you want like March 2026 or do you just want 12 months?
Before the March 2026 council meeting, or at before.
So this is giving the council staff guidance as to when this is required.
Before. At or before.
Yeah. Now, does anyone want to speak against that amendment? No. We had a mover and a seconder. Oh, you going to add any more? No more. Now I'll put that amendment. Those in favour? It's carried 6-0. Now, any further amendments? Nil. Sorry. No. Because we're going to decide this is the way it's going. Okay. Then no one speaking against, no one speaking for, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, amended motion? Well,
unless nobody wants to speak.
So, Councillor Smythe, you wish to speak against it?
Sorry, can I just make a quick procedural update? Unless someone wants to speak against the motion, it will go back to the mover to conclude the debate. It's all substantive now.
No.
I understood that Councillor Wright was against it.
So, just for clarification, no one has voted against this at time. There's been amendments. All those amendments have been carried, and that's now the substantive motion with all the amendments. So now we are debating the new substantive motion with the amendments. So if nobody is against it, it would go back to the original mover to wrap it up, and then it would go to vote.
And the original mover was Councillor Gibbs.
Councillor Gibbs speaking. Most of the thrust of what I wanted to say was taken care of while dealing with the alternative motion. It's about making sure that everyone in the community is taken care of moving forward. I appreciate all of the amendments that have come through to this resolution. I believe that it solidifies it. I hope that it gives people in the community some certainty We need to move forward with this so that we can start answering the questions that people are asking us, because we can't answer a lot of those questions because we're not up to that part yet. I believe that this resolution provides the best outcome and the best future for all involved. Thank you.
Anyone want to speak against it? That's the end of debate. Okay, well, I'll put the motion then. Those in favour of the motion as amended? Those against? That's carried 4-2. No, it was carried 4-2. Very well. So we'll move on to SY 008 of 0225, request for a new multi-year funding agreement for Hardwired Entertainment. We have a recommendation there. Anyone prepared to move?
Councillor Gibbs moves.
Someone prepared to second? Councillor Smythe.
Councillor Smythe seconds.
Been moved and seconded. Does anyone wish to speak against it? No. Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried. 6-0. SY 009 of 0225, a request to vary a multi-year funding agreement for the Wheatbelt Arts and Events Incorporated. There is a recommendation there, councillors. Is anyone prepared to move the recommendation as printed?
Councillor Gibbs moves.
Councillor Gibbs moves. Seconded. Councillor Warnick, are we moving to second?
Councillor Warnick will second.
Councillor Warnick has seconded it. Anyone want to speak against the recommendation? Councillor Smythe.
Councillor Smythe wishes to speak against the recommendation.
Do you want to say anything? Oh, right, sorry. Yeah. Councillor Gibbs.
Thanks, President Trent. Councillor Gibbs speaking. As discussed at the agenda briefing last week, the variance here is actually releasing the funds in a slightly different way. There hasn't been a change to the actual amount. This is actually just a continuation of funding that we've already previously agreed to. Thank you.
The second, I want to speak.
No, thank you, Mr. President.
Councillor Smythe.
I'd like to speak against this recommendation because I feel that we are giving next year's funding to an event for this year when the funding for this year has obviously already been expended, and the funding that we've just acquitted or approved the acquittal of Wheatbelt Arts and Events for last year's funding to the amount of $362,000, I can't agree to give funding in advance when there should have been some money left over. I mean, for instance, other people that ask for funding are told to keep money back to keep, for instance, the medieval fair being told you must keep money back to continue on with your events. This Wheatbelt and Arts and Events received a lot more funding, and now they're asking for next year's money to run this year's event. What's going to happen next year in 20? Are they going to have the funding to do that? Because that's when their funding runs out. This is the last lot of funding that they get until they have a new agreement. So in 2026, are we going to have a writers' festival? Because she's already spent the money now. That is mine. That's why I can't support it.
Very well. Anyone else want to speak against the proposal? For the proposal? Councillor Gibbs, you have the right to reply.
Thanks very much, President Trent, and thank you, Councillor Smythe, for those comments. Some good points there, but I believe those points are more about the shape of the multi-year funding, and I'd like to focus on that. The reality is the multi-year funding agreement does currently exist regardless. So I still stay to my original point while taking your points on, that the reality of the situation is we're varying the release of funds. We're not talking about a new deal, as you've pointed out. I believe that the early release of funds is appropriate in this case. I take your points, but I think that conversation is more about the multi-year funding agreement moving forward and not a variance to this particular agreement, which is why I support it.
Very well. That concludes the debate. We'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried 5-1. The next item is SY010, multi-year funding agreement acquittal for the York Society, and I will declare an interest in this, a financial interest, as I am a member of the York Society, and I will ask if we can bring forward a suggestion for a chair of the meeting. Pardon? Yes, as here. So I'll leave that with you, and you can chair the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe the President has already introduced the item, so I will ask for a mover. Councillor Smythe, you have a declaration of interest.
With regards to item multi-year funding agreement acquittal of the York Society, the matter is item SY0100225. I disclose that I have an association with the applicant for the person or the person making the decision, and the association is that I am a member of the York Society, but I believe as a consequence there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected. I declare that I will consider the matter in its merit and vote accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Smythe. The recommendation is on the screen. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Gibbs.
Councillor Gibbs moves.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbs. Do I have a seconder for the motion?
Councillor Smythe seconds.
Thank you, Councillor Smythe. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up. We have a live motion. Is there anyone opposed to the recommendation? I put it to the vote. All of those in favour, raise your hand. That is carried 5-0. Could somebody please invite the President to return to the room?
SY011 of 0225, community grants funding acquittal for the West Cycle Canola Classic 2024.
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Move Councillor Smythe. Seconded.
Councillor Gibbs.
Seconds. Anyone want to speak against the proposal? No one wants to speak against the recommendation. Therefore, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 6-0. Next item is SY012 of 0225, Community Survey Scorecard Results for 24-25. The recommendation is there. Any councillor want to move? Councillor Warnick.
Councillor Warnick moves the motion.
Councillor Gibbs seconds.
Councillor Gibbs seconds. Anyone want to speak against the recommendation? That becomes a motion. All in favour of the motion? That's carried 6-0. And next is the SY013 of 0225, Operation Management of the York Recreation and Convention Centre. Councillor Wright, you've indicated a disclosure of interest, financial. You would
This is Councillor
read
Wright.
that and leave the room, please.
In regards to the operation management of the York Recreation and Convention Centre, matter of item number SY013 of 2 of 25, I disclose that I have a financial interest in this matter as I'm a member of the bowling club, and as a consequence I'll be leaving the meeting.
Thank you. The recommendation is there. Councillor
Warnick moves the motion.
Councillor Gibbs seconds.
Anyone to speak against the proposal? The recommendation is now the motion. All those in favour? That's carried 5-0. We would bring Councillor Wright back. Yes, next item is SY014 of 0225, confirmation of the request for a postponement of election to allow consolidation. The recommendation is there. Someone want to move the recommendation?
Councillor Gibbs moves.
The seconder? Councillor Pike.
Councillor Pike seconds.
Anyone want to speak against the proposal? It's now the motion. All those in favour? 6-0. Carried. SY015, report on councillor attendance at the 2024 National Local Roads Transport and Infrastructure Congress held in Margaret River. Recommendation is there.
Councillor Warnick moves the recommendation.
Councillor Warnick moves.
Councillor Gibbs seconds.
Anyone to speak against the recommendation? Therefore, it's now the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried 6-0. Right, this is what everyone's waiting for. SY016 of 0225, consideration of the recent communication from the town of Port Hedland.
I'd like to move the motion as recommended.
Councillor Smythe wishes to move with an amendment, you said? No, as recommended, right. And Councillor Pike?
Councillor Pike seconds.
Seconding it. Anyone want to speak against the motion?
Councillor Gibbs against. Could I ask a point of clarification here?
Yes, you may.
At what point would there be an opportunity to propose an alternative motion?
An alternative. So you foreshadow?
Foreshadowing then.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if you could let us know what you're foreshadowing. Not yet. Okay. So we've got an alternative motion coming up. If it's lost. Otherwise, we won't hear it. Very well. Councillor Smythe, you wish to speak for it?
I would. Regarding the concerns around COVID-19 vaccine safety and the role of local governments under the West Australian Public Health Act of 2016, particularly in relation to claims made about Port Hedland. Firstly, local councils are responsible for promoting and protecting public health within our jurisdiction. This includes public health planning, implementing local policies and enforcing the Act where required. However, local governments are not authorised to make determinations on complex medical issues like vaccine safety and mortality rates. These matters fall strictly under the state and federal government health authorities, such as the Chief Health Officer and the Therapeutic Goods Administrator. The comments and details within the officer's report provides a lot of detailed information regarding that. Now, regarding the Port Hedland claim that there have been allegations of a 700% increase in deaths linked to mRNA in Port Hedland, this claim is false. An AAP fact-checked confirmed that the deaths in Port Hedland actually decreased in 2021, the year the vaccinations were introduced, and only saw slight increases in 2022 and 2023. Nationally, the TGA investigated 939 deaths reports following COVID-19 vaccinations, and directly linked only 14 deaths to vaccinations, primarily associated with the AstraZeneca vaccination. Importantly, no mRNA vaccine-related deaths have been confirmed and no vaccine-linked deaths have been reported since 2022. So why do the false claims persist? Misinterpretation of adverse events reports. Reporting systems collected on post-vaccine health events, even those unrelated to vaccines. Misinformation often arises when these raw numbers are misinterpreted or as confirmed cases. Association versus causation. Many health events occur coincidentally after vaccination, especially in large populations. Investigations determine actual causes and vaccine-linked deaths remain extremely rare. The power of emotion and social media. Personal stories, even when unverified, spread quickly and can fuel fear. I acknowledge community concerns, but my responsibility is to base decisions on verified data from trusted health agencies. I am committed to transparency and public safety and urge the community to rely on credible sources when discussing public health matters. Vaccinations have been made for polio, measles, chickenpox. It goes on and on and on. And I know that people have adverse reactions to various vaccinations and various medicines. But I just think that we need to follow the correct data that we've been provided with. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak for the... No? You wish to speak, Councillor Pike?
No further comments.
No comment. No one speaking against? Councillor Gibbs.
Councillor Gibbs speaking. Thank you, Councillor Smythe, for your comments. I think that we are in a situation here where, due to the content, it is very, very easy for it to become about something much larger than what the actual recommendation is about. And I think that because of the way things work in our culture and our world now, I think we have a situation where if someone takes a stand on one particular situation or one particular item in our culture, that you're automatically added to a list of other things that people may think or not think about you. So I think the danger here is by making it about this when it's really about this. Now, I find myself in quite an unenviable position here, because this recommendation sits before us as a result of my motion at the December OCM, and now I find myself speaking against the recommendation. The reason why I'm speaking against this recommendation is twofold. First of all, let's look at point 1. Acknowledges the conflicting opinions in relation to COVID-19. Okay, well, we could put that sentence at the start of just about any recommendation we do, except change the little bit at the end. People have had conflicting opinions on nearly everything we've done tonight, so I don't view that point 1 is really very substantial in terms of a recommendation that's been requested as part of an officer's report. I do note the detail in the report, however, and a couple of the options that appear earlier in it are potentially quite good. Now, part 2 resolves not to progress any action in relation to the Town of Port Hedland resolutions, as it's a matter outside the remit of local government. That comes up a lot, the remit of local government. I'd like to point to 2 occurrences in the Shire of York in the last 12 months. The first one due to external pressures, and the second one due to internal choices. A good example of the changing role of local government is in regards to temporary housing. Last year, local governments were given more powers to approve permits for up to 2 years, whereas our powers were previously much less. The reason why I'm illustrating that is because the role of local government is ever changing. So I don't buy point 2 that says that it's not within the remit of local government to look at this, because even in the short time I've been on council, our responsibilities have changed. Now, the other one that I point to is page 7 of our annual report from 23-24, which we've just released, in which President Trent very eloquently writes about our support of farmers to keep the live export trade, i.e. what we know as keep the sheep. Okay, now at that point in time, we voted 6-0 to approve that motion, and I stand by it. I agree with it. It was also discussed at that point in time that it's not within the remit of local government to get involved in political discussions or political lobbying. Yet here we are on page 7 of our own report saying that we actually support that particular cause, which puts us as a council in a situation where we have in fact supported a political lobbying group. Now, I'm not arguing that. I think we did the right thing. I don't think we did the wrong thing. I'm using it to illustrate the fact that point 2 regarding the remit of local government, it's ever changing. So I don't think that we don't look at this simply because it's outside the remit of local government. I think that we have control over our destiny there. I think that one more thing we can add there is how many local governments right across Australia are now looking much more closely at housing. Why are we doing that? Because we don't know how it's going to go at state and federal level. Would we have been talking this much about housing 10 years ago, 20 years ago? The remit of local government changed over time. So, this recommendation is quite strange, because if it passes, council resolves to do nothing, and if it fails without looking at an alternative motion, then we're also doing nothing. It's actually a redundant recommendation when you think about it, because no matter what happens, the way this is currently written, we do nothing. I'd like to see something put up that at least shows us that the council has looked at something and said yes or no. This is a no either way. I urge the council to vote no on this recommendation. My foreshadowing is in place. That would allow us to look at something more substantial, and then it survives or doesn't survive. But let's look at something that's actually an action rather than inaction. I haven't seen a recommendation like this before that actually gives us the same result whether you vote for it or not. So please consider voting against this recommendation and looking at my alternate motion as part of foreshadowing. Thank you.
See, we've seen the alternative foreshadowing. Right.
So
Okay.
through the chair, if a foreshadowed motion is if the officer's recommendation is lost, there is an alternate to go to.
Yeah.
It's not an alternate motion, it's a foreshadowed alternate motion. So until the time that this is lost, Councillor Gibbs can then share what his foreshadowed alternate motion is.
So we have to lose it to hear it. Yeah. 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 Okay, councillors, anyone else wish to speak for or against? No? Then I'll put the recommendation. We have a mover and we have a seconder. Councillor Smythe, you wish to add any further?
I just think by stepping into this domain, we are risking overstepping our mandate and potentially undermining the credibility of our council. Additionally, engaging in matters outside our expertise may inadvertently sow confusion or mistrust within our community regarding established health policies. This would have could have unintended consequences, including the spread of misinformation or unnecessary alarm. So I will be supporting the current motion.
Very well. Well, closes the debate. I'll put the recommendation, which is now the motion, as printed on the form. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 4-2. So your opportunity to bring your alternative forward is not. Very well. Council, next item is SY 017 of 0225, Public Interest Disclosure, Review of Guideline and Policy G15.
Councillor Smythe so moves.
Councillor Smythe moves.
Councillor Gibbs seconds.
Councillor Gibbs seconds. Anyone want to speak against the recommendation? Yeah, therefore that becomes the motion, and all those in favour? It's carried 6-0. SY 018 of 0225, Policy Review, Rescission of Policies.
Councillor Smythe moves the recommendation.
Moves the recommendation.
Councillor Gibbs seconds.
Therefore, it's now the motion. Anyone who wants to speak against it? Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Councillor Gibbs, you're going to vote? All right, don't worry. It's carried 6-0. This is SY 019, Policy Review, Policy E9, Attendance at Events, Councillors and Chief Executive Officer, Policy G3, Civic Functions, Awards and Hospitality, and Policy G11, Conduct of Council, Agenda, Briefings and Concept Forums. We have a mover.
Councillor Gibbs moves.
Councillor Pike seconds.
Councillor Pike seconds.
Anyone want to speak against the recommendation? No. Then I will put the motion as printed on the paper. All those in favour? That's carried 6-0. Our next item is SY 0200225, a policy review. Policy C1, honorary freeman of the Shire of York. Policy number E4, council delegates, roles and responsibilities. E8, payment of legal costs for councillors. Policy G7, disruptive behaviour at council meetings. Policy G8, petitions, and policy G9, reference or working groups. The recommendation is printed on the paper. Anyone want to move?
Councillor Gibbs moves.
Moves. Councillor Smythe seconds.
Councillor Pike seconds.
Councillor Pike has seconded it. Anyone want to speak against the recommendation? No one speaking against it. Therefore, that's now the motion. All in favour? Carried 6-0. S021 of 0225, investments for December 24.
Councillor Smythe moves.
Councillor Smythe has moved.
Councillor Gibbs seconds.
Councillor Gibbs seconds. No one wants to speak against it, therefore it becomes the motion. All those in favour? It's carried 6-0. SY 022 of 0225, financial reports December 24. The recommendation is printed there. Anyone want to move the recommendation? Councillor Smythe.
Councillor Smythe moves.
Councillor Gibbs seconds.
Councillor Gibbs seconds. Anyone want to speak against the recommendation? Therefore, it's the motion, and I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's 6-0, carried. SY 023 of 0225, investments, January 25.
Councillor Smythe moves.
Councillor Smythe moves.
Councillor Gibbs seconds.
Anyone want to speak against? I doubt it. All those in favour of the motion then? That's carried 6-0. Councillor SY 024 of 0225, the financial report for January 2025. Recommendation is there.
Councillor Gibbs moves.
Councillor Gibbs moves. Councillor Pike seconds.
Councillor Pike seconds.
No one wants to speak against it. Therefore, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried 6-0. Note we're not using any cheques anymore. Right, motions for which previous notice has been given. There are nil. Questions from members without notice. No questions. Business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of the meeting. Nil. And the meeting is closed to the public at, there's nil, so 7:14. I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, the members of the public, and the staff as well.